As the rivers of Belize approach the ocean, they change both in form and in character. And as the rivers change, so does the plant and animal life. On the last stage of its journey, the water passes through swamps and lagoons until finally it reaches the sea. These freshwater lagoons, which extend for many miles along the coastline, support an exceptional range of aquatic life, and the largest of the predators is the Morlet's crocodile, a species unique to Central America. Cautiously approaching the water, the jaguarundi, the least known of all the Central American cats. It's also called the otter cat, more because of its appearance than its swimming abilities. Although they hunt by stealth, the Morlet's crocodiles have little to fear, and having eaten, they bask in the sun. The life in these freshwater lagoons is more abundant and more varied than anywhere else in Belize. The most common of the fish are the cichlids, and they breed in the dry season when the water is at its quietest. These parents are guiding their young through dangerous waters where competition and predation are extremely fierce. The most unusual of the cichlids is the Petunia. About 1 in 1,000 is a bright red gold, and these are usually dominant in territorial disputes. The brightness of the colouring does also put them at greater risk, although they are fierce hunters in their own right. In the swamps, the dry season brings a mass of flowers, in particular the erythrina blossoms, which always appear simultaneously. These large flowers are rich in nectar, and for a short time in each year provide food for a great variety of animals, drawing them to the swamps from many miles around. Black howler monkeys move in from the forests and remain in the swamps as long as the erythrina are in bloom. They feed on leaves and buds as well as the flowers themselves, and travelling in colonies of up to 30 monkeys consume considerable amounts. But there's more than enough to go round. By contrast, the coatis do not usually destroy the flowers, but only drink the nectar. The coati is an exceptional climber and a true omnivore, feeding on almost anything from nectar to insects and lizards. It also has a highly developed sense of smell, which plays an important role in hunting, but also has its other uses. This female is perfuming herself with the scent of a fallen erythrina bloom. She has caught the scent of something underground and digs it up with her long claws. What she has found is a tarantula, and she now uses her claws to remove poisonous protective hairs from its back. She feeds when all the hairs have been removed, but without first killing the spider. Even at night, the erythrina flowers attract animals to the swamps. This is the paca, a large forest rodent and strictly nocturnal. The male has a resonating cavity in its jaws that produces an unusually menacing growl. The raccoon also forages at night, feeding mainly on frogs and crabs. But during the dry season, it searches for stranded fish in pools isolated by the receding water. It's a close relative of the coati, but rather less adept, at least when hunting fish, which are not its normal prey. Stranded fish also attract other predators. The Mexican cantil is a highly poisonous water snake that lives in the freshwater swamps and lagoons. It does much of its hunting by smell, using its tongue to pick up the scent of potential prey. In common with other snakes, its jaws dislocate to enable it to swallow its prey intact. Having fed, it realigns its jaws before moving on. Dawn is heralded by the male howler monkey. It's the loudest call in the forest. Used by the dominant male to establish and maintain its territory, it can be heard as much as 3 kilometers away, even in dense rainforest. A coati mother and cub enjoy affectionate and playful grooming before starting the day. Towards the end of the dry season, some of the lagoons dry out almost completely. In these conditions, apple snails, so called because of their size and shape, are increasingly vulnerable to attack. The shell is extremely hard, but proves no match for the powerful jaws of an adult turtle. Cichlids are quick to eat the remaining scraps. But not without competition. At this time of the year, even the coatis are able to take advantage of stranded apple snails. They too have the jaws to crack open the tough shells, although not always first time. As the lagoons dry out, thousands of birds are attracted by the trapped and stranded fish. And there are about as many feeding techniques as there are species. Protected from many predators by isolation, make ideal breeding grounds for the birds. Most breeding takes place in the dry season, when food is plentiful and the living is easy. The most common of the birds are the egrets. Their plumage always at its most elegant during the breeding season. Although the same cannot be said of the chicks. Feeding the young is a full-time and demanding occupation, especially for a bird with 2 half-grown chicks. The snowy egret, even more elegant during the breeding season, has only one very young chick to feed, but a very hungry one. And despite its size, quite capable of swallowing an enormous meal of tightly packed fish. White ibises also breed here, but the ibis chick has to do rather more coaxing than the snowy egret. The scavenging grackle will steal nestlings and attack unguarded eggs if given the opportunity. This island is free of predators with the exception of the grackle and supports more than 500 pairs of birds in almost ideal conditions. After 4 months of dry season, the rains return, and as always, the falls are heaviest at the start, carrying enormous quantities of rich sediment down towards the lagoons. As the floods approach the ocean, the fresh and salt water mix for the first time. In these conditions, the mangroves thrive on silt brought down by the floods. In the branches of the mangrove trees, arboreal termites build their nests from chewed-up wood pulp. They avoid light and build covered pathways which lead to feeding sites and down to the water. Working in the dark presents no problems. The termites are blind. The workers follow chemical trails which lead them to sources of food, building materials, and areas of damage to the nest. One of the main causes of damage is the activity of the tamandua. It's a tree-climbing anteater with an extremely acute sense of smell and can detect when a colony is about to swarm. It then rips open the nest with its long claws and feeds on the breeding adults, which provide the richest food. The young tamandua remains with its mother until almost half-grown and seems very slow to learn, despite the advantage of a prehensile tail. Once the soldier termites appear in any number, the tamandua moves on. But continues feeding on workers in the hollow roots away from the nest. Feeding is done with a long and sticky tongue. The soldier has a specially developed snout through which it squirts an irritant solution at invading predators. And when the soldiers finally appear in force, predator and offspring depart, the youngster having given up tree climbing for the time being. Repairs to the nest begin immediately and with all possible speed. Workers use what they can recover from the broken nest and bind it to new material with a sticky solution that rapidly sets very hard. With the arrival of the rains, the swamp eel emerges from its semi-dormant state underground. It's looking for a pool among the mangrove roots. Though not a true eel, it is nevertheless a member of the fish family. But strangely, a fish that can breathe air. The raccoon, still looking for fish in the drying pools and quite ready to eat the swamp eel if it can catch it. Another nocturnal hunter, the mouse opossum. It feeds for the most part on insects found among the mangrove roots, especially forest roaches. And like its relative, the four-eyed opossum, it cleans itself meticulously after feeding. As does the raccoon. At rest on the floor of the lagoon, the manatee. It must rise to the surface to breathe, but can spend long periods submerged, and unlike most underwater animals, is equally at home in both fresh and salt water. Though frequently solitary, they're very affectionate towards each other when they do meet. the shallow lagoons, the manatee heads for the open sea. In salt water, turtle grass provides the major part of the manatee's diet. The grass also acts as a filter that prevents silt from being carried onto the reef and destroying the coral. Marine islands known as keys provide welcome havens for migratory warblers. This is the first landfall after flying from the north to avoid the winter. But exhausted and hungry, they're relatively easy prey for well-camouflaged boa constrictors lying in wait on the branches. At this time of the year, a boa may make several kills in a day and will actually travel between the islands in search of migratory birds. As the mangrove roots reach out into the water, they trap more and more silt, and slowly the islands expand. Below the surface, the roots are heavily encrusted with pale anemones and a variety of similar organisms which filter the water as it passes. With a constant movement of the water, they grow in great profusion. This provides a rich and protected breeding ground for millions of fish, both from the lagoons and from the coral reef. Second only to the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, the coral reef extends for 150 miles along the coast. It is built on a bed of clay washed down from the Maya Mountains more than 1 million years ago. It is this that has protected the mangrove swamps and lagoons from the ocean and made the whole specialized environment possible. Beyond the reef, sand keys offer safe nesting grounds for the Caribbean birds. This one supports more than 4,000 red-footed boobies. This pair's courting. The magnificent frigate bird, by contrast, has a rather more extravagant courting display. The booby parents relate affectionately and share in the building of the nest. They also share the incubation of the eggs, just as both share in the protection and feeding of the young. This mother is grooming an already enormous chick. The boobies fly great distances in search of food and do their fishing a long way out at sea. But this will lead to some unexpected difficulties for the young when they begin to fish for themselves. On the ground below, hermit crabs glean every morsel that falls. With so many thousands of birds in the trees, there are plenty of scraps for scavengers, and the hermit crabs will feed on almost anything, including bird droppings. Between July and October, violent storms are common, and from time to time, hurricanes leave a trail of devastation in their wake. Below the surface, the storms have created rubble zones, but the debris is soon occupied. This sail-finned blenny has established itself in a well-protected site and is quick to defend it with an elaborate display. This too is a blenny displaying defensively. They are fiercely territorial and have the ability to camouflage themselves by changing color to match their surroundings. The decorator crab also camouflages itself, but in this case by attaching algae to its own back. The great decorator crab takes the same idea even further. It carries live sea anemones on its back. It has first to find a willing partner and makes the approach by tapping at the base of the chosen subject. The anemone then detaches itself from the coral and, after being carefully cleaned, is equally carefully placed on the back of the crab. This has benefits for both creatures. The anemone provides camouflage and protection through its stinging tentacles, while the crab provides a safe, mobile home and scraps of food in return. In the rubble zone, dead coral in the wake of the storm provides the building material for new keys and islands. But broken coral that has not died can soon re-establish itself. The disturbances caused by the storm actually contribute to the diversity of the reef by a process of continuous change and regrowth. This is one of the richest habitats in the natural world. The wealth of the marine life and the constant movement of the ocean has produced and supports opportunists and scavengers in plenty. The most active are the grackles and the crabs. The frigate bird, with its exceptional control in the air, takes opportunism even further. It is as capable of feeding itself as any bird in the Caribbean, hovering with precision at any height it chooses. But as if all this were not enough, its mastery of the air has made it also a pirate, taking advantage of the young boobies on their long return flights from the ocean. On the island, the boobies are just learning to fly. But out above the ocean, they're totally at the mercy of the frigate birds, especially when laden with food. The frigates will harass the booby until finally it regurgitates its catch. But the young birds have not yet learned to give up quickly, and it costs them dear. The adult boobies fly together, and with their greater strength and speed can usually evade the marauding frigates. The water cycle is complete. We have followed its path from the ocean to the mountain tops and back again to the ocean. An endless cycle of moving water that has fashioned the landscape and maintained all forms of life for the past 2 million years.